3, 2, 1. Alright, we're recording on this episode of the 3 in the Morning podcast. Of course, I've already forgotten what fucking episode. I think this is episode 9, actually. I've got my boy Lyric here. I've known him for like 10 years. His gamer tag is LyricCarpet. It's been that way on Xbox for a long time. He's got a new one now, but because I've referred to him as Lyric for a long time, I'm just gonna leave it as that for the purpose of the podcast. He's kind of always been like an older brother figure to me a good bit, because how many years older are you than me, Lyric?
I'm 23.
You're 20. Yeah, so you're 3.5 years older than me. That makes sense.
You know, it's a little, you're a little late for the 3 in the Morning podcast. We're recording this at like 3 p.m.
Bruh.
So
it's just a name. Need you to chill out.
Well, it should be accurate.
Whatever. I do plan on getting a sound bite of Patrick from SpongeBob being like, "Oh boy, it's 3 a.m." and I'm gonna put that at the beginning of every episode if I can. That'd be awesome.
That'll work.
I think it will. I started to do it like a couple weeks ago, but I just couldn't get the audio to mesh right and not be irritating. But yeah. I guess we can start with how we met, because this is your first episode. Whenever it's somebody's first episode, I try to go into details about how I met them, because a huge part of the podcast is about how long I've been friends with everybody and how you guys like my family. And, well, when I was like 12, so it's been like 10 years almost. When I was like 12, I went on to this old-ass RTS game, a strategy game for those listening, called Halo Wars. And I was in game chat because I didn't have any fucking Xbox friends at the time, or at least not many of them.
It doesn't feel that old, but goddamn.
It is old. Well, what's funny is I was playing the game last week. It was the definitive edition. It was like the remastered version, but I was playing Halo console. I was playing it with Badger. Oh, try to be careful when we talk about our other friends, too. Most of them you can say their first names, but Badger specifically doesn't want his first name out.
Well, you're the one that said it, not me.
Did I say his name? I didn't say his name. You lie.
Well, anyway, moving on.
Yeah, moving on. I met you in a Halo Wars game, and we both got on game chat and got our asses wrecked by other real players.
Yeah, so
yeah.
I was playing some Halo Wars that night. I think I just got the game a day or two before. I was at least the same week. I finished the campaign, and then I was like, I'm gonna play some multiplayer because I have nothing else to do at 8 p.m. on like a Saturday.
Right.
And I get into this 2v2 lobby, and this piece of shit was playing as well, I guess. We met up. I had to go eat dinner because I was like young. That's 13 now. God.
Yeah.
And I had to go eat. I was like, all right, I'll be right back. Don't die. And then I come back like 30 some minutes later, and like the match is over. I'm like, dude, what the hell? So, like, I usually during those kind of encounters, you're just like, okay, whatever, next match. I had an inkling to send a message back being like, hey, dude, what happened? I thought I told you not to lose. And we've been friends ever since.
Yes, we have. You and the other older members of our group have always kicked my shit in Halo as we've been in clans and everything as we went through our high school years and all that.
Oh, yeah, you were dog shit. You still are.
Yeah. Not as much as I used to be. The new ones, I'm still pretty dog shit, but if we go back to like Halo Reach and stuff, I'm not that bad. I don't do too terrible. Not as bad as Shark, so that helps a little bit.
I mean,
or Zach for that matter. You can call Zach by his first name, Cletus. I'm not or Hannibal. I think they know him as Hannibal from the conspiracy theories episode. Not as bad as Zach because they're just not Halo players, so that helps me a little bit. But yeah, for the last 10 years we've been playing games. You watched me go from an annoying like squeaker to a slightly less annoying squeaker.
Yeah, I mean you got taller, but that's really all that's changed in the last 10 years.
I got way taller, but yeah. Well, I got rid of a crazy girlfriend and got another crazy girlfriend. So that happened.
Yeah, and
yeah.
Going into like the friendship thing, you live places. I live in like the
Farther
other
away
side of.
places. Yeah.
Yeah, I live states away.
Right.
So
Well,
it was. I only really knew the group from just on Xbox every day because I had no one else to really talk to.
right.
Um,
Ooh.
and in 2016, I went down with a buddy of mine and hung out and met all of you guys for a week. It was pretty fun.
It was. Yeah, that was really cool. You and another one of our friends who's kind of dropped off came and visited, and that was awesome. It was the first time I was I was just in high school, I think, and I was in two-a-days, which is, for those listening, it's basically hell week at the beginning of every football season. And I had to disappear from our friend group, which was like my main source of socializing and stuff and having friends on Xbox, because I was bullied a shit ton when I was a kid and didn't get along with very many people. I would have to disappear from the friend group for like a month, 2 months at a time. When Hell Week would start and the beginning of the season would start every year from middle school till the end of high school, and the first year of college too. And one day when I got home from Hell Week, because Badger used to live down the street from me, I hear a knock at the door, and I opened the door, and all of these fucking people, like all of my friends that I'd never met in real life before, were all there, and that was insane. And I kind of threw like an impromptu like barbecue for them all on the spot, and we played Smash Bros in the living room, and it was the most nerdy and amazing thing I've ever done. It's great.
I kind of forget how like abruptly we just kind of went to your house and it was like, "Hey, feed us."
Well, you didn't say, "Hey, feed us." I think my parents were like, "Holy shit, Ashton has friends and like a shit ton of them. What?" And they just made it work.
let's not take that for granted.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, no, it was a really cool surprise and it was awesome. I think you visited once again since then, but I think I was away at college when you did, so I wasn't able to say hi.
Yeah, I try to come back around every like 2 years or so. I came back in 2018. I was planning to come back last year, but we all know what happened there.
Yeah, COVID.
I know this is YouTube, so you're not allowed to talk about anything controversial.
Oh, dude, we're way beyond that point. I don't like, even if the podcast exploded or something. Like right now, it's definitely just a hobby, right? And even if it did explode, I wouldn't make any of the money from YouTube. Like, we cuss so much in some of the things I talk about on the podcast already. Like, the algorithm would just kill me, right? Like, if I ever make any money, it's because I like eventually get on Spotify, I get my own sponsors, or I do shit on Patreon. That's the only way this will ever make any actual money.
Oh yeah.
Right. And it'll probably take years, because what I've noticed from other podcasters, if you're not famous going into it, if you're not already an influencer, if you don't already have a cult following or something, you have to post shit for years, and eventually somebody finds your podcast and they're like, "Holy shit, they've been posting for like 3 years. They've got over 100 videos. I'm going to binge watch this." And then when YouTube video sees users binge watching stuff, that's when the algorithm will start recommending you to other people.
Yeah, you got to build that community up by hand.
Right, and the community itself is just so reliant on whether or not it recommends my videos to other people. I just got to keep posting once a week, every week. Honestly, the best way to do it is to post every day, but I know our friend group would want to kill me and strangle me if I did that to them. And they'd want to kill me and strangle me if I did that to them. And then lastly, just I don't have the time for it right now. Trying to survive, pay bills. Me and photographer, that's what we'll refer to my girlfriend as because that's her gamer tag. Me and photographer are like trying to fucking move out. Now, if this lottery ticket here, because I've never played the lottery before, if this shit works out, I'll post a video every fucking day. I don't give a shit. I'll start recording video games or something just to keep myself busy. But other than that, it ain't happening. And that's if I'm the luckiest I've ever been in my entire life.
Yeah, and I said before, if you're not, then you're just gonna keep on doing it, and it's a poor man's tax.
Right. Kinda. It's only $2. So like $2 a
$2
week.
You don't have anymore.
Right, but $2 a week trying to win the lottery. It's like whatever. But yeah, it would be awesome though. Like, not gonna lie, I'd have a pretty big. I would fly you out here to come chill out. Not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, I would love that.
As like a celebration kind of thing, I'd totally fly you out.
Fly me out, buy me a house, give me a car.
I would consider helping you get started here, okay? But I'm not gonna buy you a house. I'm not gonna do everything for you.
Well, that's just rude.
Well, we were talking about what I would do with the money, like theoretically if I won, which I know I'm not. I had a bad omen last night. Like my subconscious talks to me in my dreams, which I need to do a dream episode. And last night I had a dream about Chicago getting nuked and World War III starting. So I definitely don't think I'm winning the lottery today. But
I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know how bad it would be if we didn't have Chicago.
The problem is Chicago's connected to major waterways, and if Chicago gets nuked, we're all gonna die of poison.
I have my own waterway.
You'd be fine. You'd be fine. All of us boys would die, and I'm not gonna go into any more detail about that because people do not need to know where I live. But, if I can, what was I gonna say? Oh, but yeah, we were theorizing about it. Zach and Badger have this hilarious concept in guns that they want to do about
Okay.
They want to make this thing called 300 Win Mag, is what it's called, and they want to make M1 Garens, so like M1 Grands, and they want to make it shoot like 50 caliber BMG shit.
Yeah.
And because like you know how when you're done shooting an M1 Grand, it makes like the ting sound.
Yes, I do.
The damn size of the internal clip thing that they use with these things would be like ting as it pops out of it because it's gonna be like massive, and it's just I plan on, if I were to win the lottery, I would invest in WinMag, and that would be the name of their company. It would be named 300 WinMag, and and Badger would be the gunsmith, and Zach would be the probably like one of the main managers of it, and I would be the main investor. And if somebody tries to break into the mansion that I'd buy, I would have WinMag hanging above my fireplace, and I would just unload on somebody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of my property.
Right. Exactly. No. In all honesty, like for instance, if I won the lottery, I would invest in this if they came to me with a proper business plan saying that like it could work, right? But I would invest in that, and I wouldn't buy a mansion. I would just buy a nice, like, comfy house that has shit that, like, I've always wanted, like an indoor or a home gym. I want something like that. I've always wanted something like that. A proper, like, office for the podcast would be cool, and a place to do, like, in-person podcast stuff would be cool.
Oh, you have, like, your own studio?
Exactly. And then, honestly, depending on how often we do this, we haven't really talked about it on this episode yet, but the point of this episode is video game stuff, because Lyric is like our go-to video game news person in the group. That's what he does. Badger's got guns, Jake Titan's got politics, Zach's got memes, I'd say, or conspiracies. Lyric's got video game news.
I'd say he's the crazy conspiracy guy.
He is. Have you listened to Conspiracy Theories episode? It's honestly really funny.
No.
Alright, I will link that to you later, but it's hilarious. But you're the video game news guy, and if this episode goes well, I think... I mean, even if it doesn't go well, because none of my episodes go well right now, because I don't have a following yet. But if it... No, not if. I want to do this every once in a while, like maybe once a month or twice a month or something. We just talk about what's happening in video game news currently. Because that's the whole foundation of our group is video games, so it just makes sense. Oh, I just remembered we could talk about Bethesda being bought by Microsoft. I think that was official today, actually.
Oh, that is official now?
Yeah, like today, I think. It just happened.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, we can talk about that. I mean... I think as a whole, Bethesda it has. I'm not saying I'm not a Bethesda fan because I do quite enjoy their games.
I don't know if it's like your niche though. Like it is like me and Badger.
It's definitely not my niche.
Yeah.
But I can respect them as a studio. They do tend to. I know the whole story. The bugs are just features. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
I just realized what can of worms we're opening up. It's like the one thing in video games we really disagree about. Shit.
Yeah, I don't like. I say I don't like it, but it's complicated.
No, I get it.
I don't enjoy how Bethesda finishes their games. Like opening presentation, it's great. I'm loving it, and then I lose all immersion.
So, yeah, I actually I don't disagree with you. Just as my politics have gotten more moderate, so have my own personal opinions about stuff as well over the last little bit of time, over the last year or so. So I'm still a Bethesdian RPG fanboy, and that's not because I don't think their games are perfectly polished when they come out. I don't think like they're definitely not up to standard, and definitely not up to AAA standard. Well, maybe now they are. What AAA has been doing lately, AAA games. Yeah, now they are.
It's not that they upped themselves, that the industry kind of
lowered itself,
went down to their level.
Yeah, exactly. For those listening, in case they're not avid gamers or really into it, lately the AAA games are like top production quality, top budgeted games that are super anticipated every year whenever they come out.
It's the games you can actually care about.
Call of Duty, for instance, that kind of thing. They were known for having the best production quality and the best like in the door product, least amount of glitches, least amount of problems, most polished product after launch of the video game. And Bethesda was always that one really big time gaming company that would release broken fucking games and still get away with it and still like get game of the year and everything, even though their games were broken. But what's funny is the AAA industry lately has been pretty awful with every game they release lately. Like every game is broken. Cyberpunk, for instance, is awful in terms of how broken it is.
It took almost an entire decade to get it finished, and it still wasn't in like a pre-alpha state.
Right, and then a lot of the things, a lot of like you know, people talk about how RPG games are a lie because it's only rendering the stuff you're looking at, right? Cyberpunk like took that with their crowd generation technology to a whole new level of being fake. Like the game doesn't even remember the NPCs after you turn around and look back. It has to spawn entirely new ones. Like in Skyrim, it stops rendering everything, but there's still ones and zeros remembering that an NPC's behind you, and if they're walking, it estimates the speed at which they should be when you look back, right? In Cyberpunk, it just deletes the NPCs and respawns the crowd like RNGesus is. It just random dice rolls it, and it's super noticeable and weird. And it's like you're in the Matrix or something. It's trippy as shit.
And with Cyberpunk, I believe the console versions
broken.
The console versions were unplayable. PlayStation
we
moved it off the store.
Gotta be more objective about that a little bit. It was broken on the old ones. The new ones, the Series X and the PlayStation 5, it was more than playable and wasn't breaking as often as it suggested. But if you played it on the OG consoles beforehand, unplayable. I would say completely unplayable. And this is from what I've seen.
I played it on a PS4 Pro.
Mm-hmm.
I got through a good like 2 or 3 hours of it until like the mafia scene.
Right.
And I had at least 3 or 4 game complete crashes.
Yeah, I believe it. That's the older generation. My One X probably wouldn't handle it well at all. When Black Ops 1 was released, that was broken. Or not Black Ops 1, the new Black Ops. When that was released, it was broken as shit.
Yeah, and Cyberpunk is still off of the PlayStation Store.
Yeah, but they didn't take it off because it's too broken. They took it off because if you're gonna offer refunds for something, you can't continue selling the product, because if you offer refunds, then people will buy the product, play it, and then refund it to just get their money back. That's why they took it off the store, because it works fine on the PlayStation 5, but you can't sell the product and then offer refunds, because then people are just getting the product for free. So I understand their reason for doing that, but they probably should have vetted the game a little bit more to avoid the problem altogether.
Well, I think CD Projekt Red shouldn't have listened to the community saying that it needs to come out. If it's not working, then don't release it.
Yeah, but how was it not working? With how long that thing was in production? Like, I understand we were just talking about Bethesda, which is ironic as shit, right? But I've got rebuttals about that, which we'll circle back to. But like, CD Projekt Red is known for having crazy good production quality. I mean, look at The Witcher, right? And this thing was in such a broken state on consoles. I don't know how it ever got past product testing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, what the fuck?
I think there was definitely some leadership problems with CD Projekt Red.
Have you actually heard anything about that, or is it just your theory?
It's my inclination. I don't know if there's an article about it. But another studio did this that it reminds me of, and I was thinking about earlier today, which I figured we'd probably get into it, even though we're kind of jumping in between studios.
Mm-hmm.
Is BioWare.
Oh, like with their what's it, clusterfuck with Anthem, right?
It's more than just Anthem. I think.
Oh yeah, and the new Mass Effect, actually, that was an awful launch. That was fucked.
The thing with BioWare is that after Mass Effect 3, I still think it was a fantastic game up until the last 15 minutes, which is a big sentiment. Everyone knows what happened with Mass Effect 3 if you don't play the game.
Well, no, dude. Games that are over 3 years old, we can talk about entire storylines and endings and critique them. Like, I'm not worried about spoilers with that.
But with Mass Effect 3, after that development, the studio was so... I think they were honestly so shell-shocked from the backlash they got from that.
From Mass Effect 3?
Right. And it just completely stalled everything out.
Right.
Edmonton, the studio that made the Mass Effects, they took a break. They were pushed along to other studios for Dragon Age and eventually Anthem.
Right.
I mean, Inquisition, it came out as a great game. It's still not perfect. And with the EA bear hug that they
define that. What do you mean EA bear hug?
And I mean, after they were bought in 2007 by EA around Mass Effect 2.
Mm.
And then right after Mass Effect 2, they had to make Mass Effect 3, the biggest game that they've ever worked on, incorporating 2 other game storylines within half the time.
I see.
So a lot of people were kind of, that's a hell of a that's a hell of a work environment.
Definitely.
To expect double work in half the time, triple the work even, and after that, with after Mass Effect 3, when it came to Dragon Age Inquisition, EA wanted all of their studios to run off of the Frostbite engine from Battlefield, so it could all be consistent. Everyone will know how the system works, and everything will be intuitive. The problem with Inquisition was that using the Frostbite engine, that game engine is supposed to simulate real warfare, and destructible environments, shooting, helicopters, tanks. It's not designed for
it's
a
not an
third-person
RPG.
fantasy
Yeah,
RPG
it's not an
with
RPG
magic.
game. Yeah.
So half of Inquisition's development was to build those systems into the engine from scratch.
Right. Well, that's some of the great parts about RPG games and stuff, is you can you don't need as complex of an engine because there's only one player affecting the environment at any given time. You just have to heavily script everything, right? The more you
Right.
heavily script stuff, the better the experience. I mean, obviously you want random encounters and stuff, which is where the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games really excel, right?
Right.
But yeah.
Well, it's not just like basic AI scripting and that. Like they had to build like basic functions like a party system,
Yeah, from the ground
magic,
up.
how to have a character, how to have your avatar character be third person. Like all of that stuff had to be coded from scratch implanted into a battlefield simulator.
Right.
And luckily it all worked out together. I mean, there was some compromises, but there's compromise in anything. But because of the massive success that Inquisition had in 2013, like winning Game of the Year and all that, getting all this appraisal, they figured, screw it. Like we don't need to fix how we're doing things. Like it's the BioWare magic, as they say,
right?
Which is scramble for the first like 1 to 2 years of development, and then just like
then chill,
overwork your staff for the next 6 months.
Jeez, yeah. I know you've got a lot of problems with BioWare specifically from what we talked about in the past,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame you for those opinions, especially after seeing what happened with Anthem. I feel really bad for Coltrane because he just like, we can call Coltrane Cole, by the way, because his name's literally Coltrane.
Okay.
But I know that ruined him, dude, because that was like his top anticipated game for a long time. And I don't blame him. The aesthetic of that game looked awesome in the universe. It was like a way more rustic, cool Destiny, right?
Right.
And God, they dropped the ball on that.
The problem with that is they refuse to acknowledge that it's not a Destiny clone. It's something completely different. We're not even thinking about Bungie or Destiny.
Yeah, they say that, but then proceed to.
They flat out would deny it to people that like this has nothing to do with Destiny. We're not. This not at all. Like this is our own thing. Because with Anthem, based off of the really good reporting that was done with I don't remember his name. I have to look it up. But there was a expose done from BioWare during going over Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda's development, and it highlighted a lot of worker abuse that BioWare was inflicting on their employees.
Oof.
And like there would be people like lock themselves into closets and just cry. People not being able to leave their jobs, they staying there for weeks on end, not being able to spend time with their family. It was terrible.
Yeah, no, I remember you told me about that, and there was like a total breakdown in management, and because when it was happening and when the news was coming out about it, you were informing us about it. Which, by the way, to sidestep the conversation for a second, I really want to give you an outlet for some of your gaming news and stuff on this channel specifically, because like the whole point of the channel is for me to have an outlet about conversations, because because just as you love to talk about gaming news and what's going on with that, because it's kind of your thing, and you'd assume your friends would want to have those conversations with you, which I do, by the way, and a lot of the other guys want to as well. But it's not always available because our friend group's getting way more and more competitive with the types of games we play that require way more focus and require way more direct attention. And so it affected you first before it affected me. If you join and start trying to talk about video game news, people would give you like shit for it and like kind of just want you to leave them alone to a certain extent so that they could focus on whatever game they're playing. I remember it was Rainbow Six Siege, I think, right? And then it was For Honor, and then it was Call of Duty Warzone, and it just keeps changing. I like to talk about philosophy. I mean, frankly, I like to talk about anything. I like talking about this with you as well, actually. I remember me and you talked about that Dota thing for a long time and heavily disagreed. But I mean, when I get on Xbox, I play a single player game, and I fuck off and just talk the entire time. I do not. I don't really take the game seriously, especially not the competitive aspects of them.
Right.
And now with this podcast, I can have those conversations as much as I want with our friend group and be productive while I'm doing it. And I'm hoping to give you that outlet too with the video game news and stuff.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Well, I just found the article. How BioWare's Anthem went wrong by Jason Schreier. Did some amazing journalism with that. So you don't find a lot of good journalism at Kotaku, but
right.
this was it. It just showed all the terrible business practices they did. With that E3 trailer that Anthem released off of, remember a couple years ago?
Right.
When it was first showcased. For the majority of BioWare staff that was developing the game, that was the first time they actually saw like the whole product they were working on.
Right.
Like that was like everyone was like, "Oh wait, that's the game we're making,"
even though it'd been in production for a very long time.
Yes.
That's pathetic. That's so stupid.
They tried doing.
This is like in RPG games when voice actors are recording lines for like years and have no idea what the game's about.
Yeah, but this is the people actually like making the game.
I know, but did you know that that's what Bethesda does? The guy who played Kellogg in Fallout 4 had no idea what he was recording lines for like a super long time. He had no freaking idea. Dude, yeah, but that's... I understand why. The guy who recorded Three Dog's voice from Fallout 3, the radio host, he like would always get on social media and leak shit all the time. And that's why Bethesda like now kind of treats their voice actors like shit sometimes. Because like one of their main characters in one of their biggest games ever like constantly caused them problems, right?
Yeah.
But wait, what did you read?
I was just reacting to you, but
all right.
With when Anthem and like Andromeda were like the big things, it's kind of the same story. It was just like, all right, we're gonna put all these ideas together. We don't have any actual leadership on deciding what's gonna be. Like both games kind of try to go for like a No Man's Sky kind of thing. Right. At least with Andromeda, like having like procedurally generated worlds and everything, and all like hundreds of crafted worlds.
Definitely
they ended
wasn't
up having
any of
to
that.
scrap everything.
Yeah, they went straight Witcher route where it was just like a bunch of cells, a bunch of individual cells.
Yeah, and they had to finish the rest of that game within a year. When at least Andromeda, in its case, was in development like at least since roughly a little bit after Mass Effect 3's production. But the actual game of Andromeda wasn't worked on until the last year.
Wow.
It was constantly adding things into Frostbite that weren't wasn't something the engine itself could handle, so they had to build those pieces from scratch, putting all these new concept ideas and just having no like direction, just throwing ideas and none of them sticking. It had to take old talent from the Edmonton studio that made the Mass Effects to actually like worked on Mass Effect 3's development and how hectic that was, and try and direct the team.
Ugh.
Because with Andromeda, that was made by BioWare Montreal, which before Andromeda only really worked on like pieces of Mass Effect 3 DLC and its multiplayer component. That it was a support studio first and foremost. And when Edmonton wanted to take a break, they were like, "All right, let's do it. Let's give the support team full access to this entire IP, and not help them, and also make fun of them, and see how that goes."
That's yeah.
Because Edmonton and Montreal also had a rivalry because they kept accusing the other of stealing their works.
That's healthy.
Yeah, And Bioware Magic didn't work. Third time's the charm. Not in this case.
Right.
And then they tried the same thing with Anthem, and then it got leaked of how terrible they are, and they've paid the price for it. There's been like hundreds of high profile well, I don't know about high profile, but there was at least 300 long-time BioWare veterans that have left since 2015. There's been around at least 300 like 10 year plus veterans of BioWare leaving in the past like 6 years.
Are they finding work at other
Yeah, they're some of them are finding work.
Okay.
I believe
I mean they were involved in some pretty legendary games when you think about it.
Oh yeah, like some of them were with BioWare since the beginning. Some worked on just Mass Effect. Some were as long as like Jade Empire and KOTOR.
Damn.
But it's a lot of talent that's getting bled out.
Right.
And
well, I'm not bothered by some of these AAA developers like totally falling apart at the seams and turning into something else.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would be great to take some of these IPs away and some of the talent away from the big guys and have them maybe go create some new ones by working with indie devs or something like that. I just know that the market's super oversaturated with indie games and startups and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the name of the game. I mean,
right.
Indie is hard to market for sometimes.
Right.
Unless it's like a real quality product.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm worried for BioWare because Edmonton and everyone they're all working on the Dragon Age 4 and the new Mass Effect that was announced but gave no details on.
Oh, wait, they've announced another one after Andromeda?
Yeah, the about a week or two ago they released a trailer for Mass Effect 4.
That's okay. So sometimes an IP should die and you should make something similar or new. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I'm excited for Halo Infinite, especially because the game now looks good with some of the screenshots they've been releasing. But the Halo franchise probably should have died with Halo 3. I'm serious.
The way Bungie intended it.
Exactly. Making spin-offs would be fine. Seriously. And yeah. Halo Reach was a great addition to the lore and the story, and that was great too. That's a spin-off game. It's a prequel, you know what I mean?
I mean, you can look at it that way for you could look at the newer games as just spin-offs technically.
But they're not. They're trying to advance the story. They wrote a great story with Halo 4, which could have ended everything, and then proceeded to destroy it with Halo 5, and
proceeded to then take everything that was related to Halo 4 and shove it into a gutter.
Yeah, because Halo 4, I personally think had awful gameplay. I hated the multiplayer; it wasn't enjoyable at all. But had a great story, and it was written well. And it was the ultimate conclusion to every. It was kind of how to explain it. Halo 4 really could have been the closure story. For instance, there's the book. A little off topic, but I'm gonna connect it. The book that you were probably forced to read in high school called To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes.
Right. So, To Kill a Mockingbird actually had a sequel.
Yes.
And it's super screwed up. And you find out that Atticus, the super wise, super good-natured guy, is actually a member of the KKK and shit. And he's not particularly evil because he's actually against a lot of it, and he's trying to change it from the inside out or whatever. But you really find out that he's human and has a shit ton of flaws and is not what he was presented to be in the first book.
Yeah, The Kill a Mockingbird I think is also getting canceled in schools.
That doesn't surprise me, but
I mean, it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah,
the book makes me uncomfortable. Yeah, that's that's what the book's supposed
to be. I had a point last podcast episode I'll talk to you about because I want to hear your opinion about. But before that, the way the book closed, though, was like it's like the author went back and wanted to destroy what they created to kind of give like a false sense of closure to the audience, I guess. I can't name the name. I can't name the author of To Kill a Mockingbird off the top of my head. I think it's a girl, though, actually.
Yes.
But what was I gonna say? Oh, and that's what Halo 4 was. Halo 4 had Chief, like, besides the books, because you see a lot of it in the books. Halo 4 had Chief like the most human seeming emotionally that we've ever seen. He's like, you can kind of tell he's starting to get old. He's like, I mean, relatively speaking, he's only like 20 something years old, right?
I think in terms of cryos, I think he's around like 50.
Well, that's with cryosleep. I mean
not,
physically, like
physically he's probably in his 30s.
Yeah, yeah. But regardless, you could tell Chief's getting old. He's getting worn down. Cortana's actually getting old. She's entering rampancy. She's falling apart, and like this should have been the end. And honestly, the only thing that they could have written Halo 4 better was having more closure with the Covenant. Something similar to like finding out the Arbiter took Sing Helios with the swords of Sing Helios, and like
I don't know if
became independent.
I don't know if there's any more closure than just like Halo 3 did, where it just kills the fucking Prophet and everything's just hunky dory.
Right, that was good. I mean, where they really screwed up was saying that we're still at war with the Covenant, just giving them a different name, but not even the Storm Covenant, right? Like, that was stupid. But then they go too far the other way and make us at war with some other kind of aliens that are like so technologically advanced and magical, the Forerunners, right? And that was stupid. And like,
I enjoyed the Forerunners trilogy.
You did?
In terms of it was pretty hefty in text.
I like a lot of the lore it gives us, but it's bad because it's tainted with. It's tainted with what's it called? It's tainted by the fact that they killed a good story to make it happen. And they did the same thing with Destiny. Like, Bungie's not perfect either. The original story of Destiny, the MMO game, is that like the Traveler was supposed to be evil, like secretly. It was supposed to be like a parasite that like did terrible things and was actually the bad guy, and the reason all of these dark empires wanted to destroy it was because it fucked up their civilizations before ours. And like that was a really good written, cool story. And in Halo, we were supposed to be the Forerunners. Humans were supposed to be the Forerunners, and they had like a fall from grace. And that was scrapped after 343 took over, and then you actually see Forerunners, which you can't do that in Halo games.
I mean, there was hints of Bungie actually changing that.
No, I know they started
during
to
Halo 3.
like being able to talk to the ISO didact or getting messages from him, and Mendicant and Bias and the librarian and all that kind of stuff. That changes things, right? But I still loved that initial story. I thought it was so much better. I thought there was way more history with that. And also, like, having the Ark being on Earth and everything, or not the Ark, the teleporter to the Ark in Halo 3, all that kind of stuff, it just melded better in my opinion. But then the Forerunner trilogy had to kill that part of the story to write theirs. You get what I'm saying? And that bothered me.
I disagree, but
you prefer it the way it is now?
I mean, I don't think there's that much of an issue. I mean,
I think they have a desensitization problem, and they keep having to complicate things lore-wise and make it more fantastical and crazy. You see it in their art style with Forerunner stuff as well. As they try to write stories.
Even the Forerunner style, Forerunner like 343 era, Forerunner architecture was even around during the Bungie era.
Kinda.
With the book of Ghost of Onyx,
Oh yeah, I knew that.
When they're on the Shield world, it accurately describes how like Requiem looks.
It describes how Requiem
looks.
However, the Halo 4 interpretation of Requiem, the way 343 interpreted all of it, still isn't super consistent with how Bungie would have designed it. Like, for instance, What was really cool about Bungie's Forerunners and their designs and the story and everything is their technology looked more what's the word? Ancient. It looked more like trying to think about how I could explain. It looks like something you could find buried on Earth, like megalith structures to a certain extent, unless they were like still in use, like the Ark and
Right.
stuff. And I loved that, like Sand Trap, Halo 3 Sand Trap, the Forerunner structures you can build with, or like the mission in Halo 2 when you're going to kill the Prophet of Regret, or not Regret, Mercy.
Yeah, no, it
It's
was
Regret.
regret.
Yeah, when you're going to kill Regret in like the jungle ruins and stuff, and how some of it had current Forerunner stuff and the rest of it was like preserved by the Forerunners because they liked the aesthetic. Like I thought that shit was so cool, dude. I'm sorry, I thought it was so cool.
No, there is some explanations at least that like kind of try and mitigate that.
Well,
Uh,
and they redesigned the entire like 343 goes so far they redesigned like all of the UNSC ships and shit, and like I didn't like those designs either. It's just I didn't like the art style in the later Halos at all, and I think it
yeah,
took away from the story as well. I think they're fixing it a little bit in the new ones. Halo Infinite.
yeah. I believe it's gonna be a bit of a mix of kind of like how they did with Halo Wars 2. It's gonna be
Right.
a blending of the two art styles.
Definitely.
Um, I think in terms of the explanation on to why it's different, the the lore reason was because the all every single aspect of foreigner architecture we saw was like before like Bungie era was like Halos essentially,
Right.
and built by one rate of the Forerunners, the builder rate,
Right.
where
And they have specific architectural styles, kind of like a culture,
yeah
like
they
all
have
that kind of
different
stuff.
architectural styles. They and also the Halos were kind of built hundreds of thousands of years even before the rings were fired.
Right.
So it's definitely going to be simpler architecture where the like Halo 4 stuff has been all like shield worlds, like
Built after the
warships,
fact.
and
Yeah.
that was more of the warrior servant like class. So it's kind of like the difference between like Eastern and Western architecture. Like
Right.
there's distinct styles, but they're all human.
That's a good way to explain it away. I'm not going to disagree. It does add more depth to the story and stuff, but I still have a preference. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes, and I 100% prefer Bungie era
right.
art style.
Um, Another thing, Halo related. I think they missed it. They keep going with the Covenant, making the Covenant the enemies, and in Halo Infinite, they're probably gonna bring back the Flood, and they're just recycling the same old stuff.
Well, it's the
And
Banished right now,
yeah, exactly.
which
And
is a brute led.
right, and I don't. The Banished would have been cool if they weren't in Halo Wars 2, and if they were the Storm Covenant instead of the Storm Covenant in Halo 4. That would have been cooler. That would have been way cooler. Um, and then also, in my opinion, obviously, right? I'm making these generalized statements, but it's just how I would have preferred it. I think they missed a really big opportunity with spin-off potential. They totally like okay, scrap all of Halo 5 story except for some of the shit that happened with the Arbiter because that was like the Glasslands book, right?
Right.
They should have scrapped everything in Halo 5, especially the Guardians and all that stupid shit. And they instead should have had Locke's team. You should have kept Locke, you should have kept his whole team, really had a story. I mean, maybe not Buck. I love Buck, but not as a Spartan 4. Um
I mean,
sh-
what do you expect he's supposed to do
I don't know yet.
after the war?
I'll touch on that in a minute. But um keep his team, and instead of having him fight the Covenant or deal with the Banished or like go hunt down Chief and stuff, instead you should have him. You should show this side of the UNSC like that we see in the books, where the UNSC is like an evil military dictatorship. Because up to that point, the UNSC was always the good guys when you were Master Chief. And it would be really interesting and really cool to have to go put down rebel uprisings on other planets as Locke's team as Fireteam Osiris.
I
And maybe near the end of the campaign is when you start hunting down for Chief because he goes AWOL or something, but you don't know why. I'm thinking maybe you shouldn't have played as Chief at all, and this is a bit of a spin-off. And like there's so much more story potential, and like by the end of the campaign, the squad could be like everybody but Locke could be like broken because none of them thought they'd be fighting humans when they signed up, right? Yeah, but Locke's Oni, so he's like that's part of the job, right? And they also portray Locke like he's like this good valorous guy, and he's a fucking assassin, dude.
Well, that's because the plan was to replace Chief with Locke.
Right, and
but they didn't want to use him
they
anymore.
need to be more consistent with the universe. He's an Oni operative. They're the boogeyman of the UNSC. What the fuck was that? I don't know why my PC's yelling at me. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
That's weird. But he's a damn Oni operative. He's one of the bad guys, even if he's doing some good things. You know what I mean? Like, that needs to be portrayed that way.
I think they should have went along with the story that they were telling us before Halo 5 came out, where it was a hunt for the Chief.
Right. Well, actually, if Chief really went AWOL, you could have inserted insurrectionists that way. Maybe Chief started working with them, or was hiding out on insurrectionist worlds or something as he was trying to like find a cure for Cortana. Maybe one of the big aspects of the story is that an insurrectionist world that declared itself independent, like found a Forerunner technology or something. Like the Forerunners are the perfect MacGuffin for like having to put down super weapons or like certain groups becoming more powerful randomly. You know what I mean? Like they really just needed to roll with something else other than what they did.
I mean, that is kind of what they did with the Guardians, but
yeah, but they did it in the worst way possible. Yeah. We'll move on from Halo for now, because we could talk about it for days, seeing as to how it's how we met each other, and it's been like the whole foundation of our group since forever, last 10 years. We're all nerds about it. We've all read the Halo books. We've all spent a lot of time with it.
Oh yeah, speaking of books, To Kill a Mockingbird was Harper Lee.
That's who wrote it.
And also, the second book was unreleased up until her death because she didn't want to publish it, and then
because the flack for publishing that would be
she kept the manuscript under lock and key, but after she died, her estate found it and published it without her wanting it to be published.
Without her being alive to stop it.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to circle back to Bethesda, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bethesda being bought out by Microsoft overall for the industry is going to be a good thing. I mean, big business getting more big business is but right. I think Microsoft needed it for one. They needed to have more games exclusive to them. Some people are like, "Oh, that's not going to happen. It's already happened."
Well, wasn't that the biggest gripe most casual players had? Yeah. Xbox versus PlayStation was the fact that PlayStation just had more and better exclusives.
Yes.
I mean, you can only release Gears of War so many fucking times.
Yeah, it's Halo and Gears of War and like maybe Forza. Those are the only real reasons that you'd want to have an Xbox versus a PlayStation.
Right.
In terms of exclusivity. But with Bethesda being bought out, I mean, they said that they're going to honor their previous agreements and stuff, and each game will be exclusive on a game-by-game basis.
Right.
But it's already starting to happen with once all those the big Star Wars announcement came out with all the new Star Wars games coming.
Mm-hmm.
And Bethesda announced that they were making Indiana Jones game.
They are?
Yes.
Bethesda Softworks or Bethesda Game Studios? There's a huge difference.
I'll have to look, but
because the reason you can't conflate the two is because one only does the same type of RPG format over and over and over again, and then the other has like Doom and Quake and like all this other crazy shit, right? Like that is a completely different type of game. It's just a massive difference. But you know, I was really worried about Bethesda Game Studios specifically, especially with how they were handling 76 and like some of their aggressive monetary practices and stuff. But Badger suggested to me like a year before anybody had heard anything about it that they were trying to get sold, and I didn't understand that at first, right? But then it actually happened, and I'm like, oh shit, maybe it was intentional.
I believe I actually told him myself about that.
Oh,
theory. Really? Because like if you look at it, like they've been trying to get bought out for a couple years now,
right?
And that's why that's ultimately the reason why they were screwing the community over with like 76. Right. They wanted to get a new open world multiplayer Fallout game out to like widen their portfolio and to show that Bethesda can make money, because because they only make money of every other like decade with the the games they make. Mm-hmm. And then Fallout 76 happens, and they loot box it up, mm-hmm. and cause all of these terrible business practices. I mean, it ultimately turned out to be a failure, but they still made money. They were trying to make it more appealing.
I hope it wasn't to make it more appealing, and it was instead just to try to make them viable to be sold. I hope it was really them trying to make themselves worth less to ZeniMax.
Oh no, they were trying to make themselves look better, because
better to Microsoft, because Microsoft is spelled with a cash sign.
Because ZeniMax is owned by Microsoft now.
I know they bought the whole fucking thing. They didn't just buy Bethesda. I do know that. They bought everything.
I mean, ZeniMax themselves were trying to be bought out, not just Bethesda.
I get it.
And they had talks with a bunch of different companies.
I feel like Bethesda Game Studios was the jewel in the crown, though, of all of that.
I mean, but you got Fallout, like Elder Scrolls, Doom, Wolfenstein. These are big names in the industry.
They are.
And now if Microsoft wants it, you can only
play them all exclusive.
You can only play them on Xbox
and PC. And it's actually really good that Microsoft is the one who bought them and not Sony, because Microsoft doesn't want to alienate PC players at all. They produce PC shit. You know what I mean? So like that's good. That's a good thing, because they have two platforms, not one. Sony has one platform. Right. So that is a plus for all gamers, for more than half. Out of the three branches of gamers, it's better that Microsoft is doing it than Sony. Sony is also anti-mods. So imagine if Sony bought Bethesda. None of the new Bethesdian RPGs would be playable. I love Bethesdian RPGs. You can't play them without mods, not after a year. You need them. It's part of the experience.
I don't know how well Xbox is going to treat Bethesda in that regard.
Well, they did great for Fallout 4. I'm serious. And Skyrim Special Edition. Consoles have never seen this level of modding capability before, ever. It's insane. It's not perfect. It's not anywhere close to as good as PC, but this is game changing, and Sony didn't allow it. I don't know if you knew that, but the Sony Special Edition and Sony Fallout 4 didn't even have half the content on their modding pages, because Sony wouldn't allow any of it. They were anti-modding. They didn't understand that that's the whole point of Bethesdian RPGs, is to tailor it to your own experience. It's a D&D game that you can make your own, and they didn't understand that.
I see the argument. I don't know whether Microsoft is gonna follow through on it, though. They've been getting a little bit more anti-consumer recently.
I don't disagree with that at all. I don't think I know you're pretty skeptical about it, but I don't think that the bread and butter, because Fallout 76 is a spin-off game, and you can tell that because it's Fallout 4 in a different setting and with multiplayer mechanics, like the engine, the graphics, a lot of the weapons and stuff, and the new weapons they added were actually mods that they bought or used, made by players.
Is the Fallout 4 engine.
Exactly, and it's the same relation that New Vegas had to Fallout 3. New Vegas, even though it's considered a new installment to the Fallout series, there's a reason it wasn't Fallout 4. because it's Fallout 3 in a different setting, in a different story. You know what I mean? But it's they copy and pasted the game, added a few new mechanics. It's more like a DLC than it is a new game, and that's important to recognize with this kind of stuff. Fallout 76 is not a new installment of the Fallout franchise that way. It's not a main game; it's a spin-off game. Same as Elder Scrolls Online. Elder Scrolls Online wasn't even created by the game studios, like at all. Todd Howard had nothing to do with the Elder Scrolls Online, at all. Which is weird because the Elder Scrolls is like his, but yeah. And so we have to keep all that in mind. I don't think that their main installments of their RPGs series will change all that much for the negative. I do think there'll be microtransactions. I do think they're going to get more anti-consumer, but there's only so much you can do to the RPG games to make them as anti-consumer as possible because mods can do anything. That's the thing. As long as they don't eliminate the ability to mod, there's few things they can't do. Like this Creation Club thing they added, the paid mods, it doesn't work. Because every time they come out with a paid mod on the Creation Club, somebody makes a better version of it for free on the Nexus. Like, the following day. I have a better version of every Creation Club mod that's come out for a special edition, and I have it all for free from Nexus. Every single one. Yeah.
I mean, PC. I definitely know the PC.
It's gonna be just fine.
It's not gonna be touched by that.
Exactly. I'm excited to see what kind of mods are gonna come out of Starfield, dude. Whatever they do with Starfield, it's gonna be crazy.
I hope that it's gonna be on Steam, because
Starfield.
No, I don't give a shit about Starfield. I'm talking about like the new Elder Scrolls or Fallout.
Oh, you think Microsoft might make it so you have to buy it from them? That would be bad. That would be bad. Especially because that would be way less friendly to like mod organizers and launchers and stuff. Like when I go to play Skyrim, I can't click on the Skyrim icon on my desktop. I have to open up Mod Organizer and like some other script extender software and then run it through that. That's how I manage my mods and stop crashes and stuff.
Right.
So like if I had to buy it from Microsoft, I really trying to backdoor shit like that and tailor the game to not be awful is gonna be tough. That'd make it way harder because Steam's really friendly to that kind of stuff. Microsoft isn't so much. So yeah, I mean Steam's literally a modding community. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a worrisome thing. I'm glad that a lot of 76's shenanigans though were mainly them trying to get sold. It wasn't Todd Howard becoming like evil per se. You know what I mean? I wish they didn't do it to Fallout though. My boy, it's just rough. But what do you think about Obsidian and Bethesda both being owned by Microsoft now though? They hate each other, dude.
New Vegas too.
New Vegas too?
It's possible now.
Well, you know, Obsidian's coming out with Avowed, that new one. They came out with The Outer Worlds, which is like a Fallout competitor. And now they're coming out with Avowed, which is going to be an Elder Scrolls competitor. I think if Microsoft pits them against each other, we could see a golden age of RPG games in terms of how polished they are because they're competing with each other. I think that could be really interesting, and just way more IPs. Like I'm excited.
I always think that's a good thing to have.
You do think it is, or you don't?
Yes.
Yes, I think it's a good thing as well. I'm excited to see it. I really liked The Outer Worlds, but it was lacking a lot of the things that the Bethesdian RPGs have. Like the gameplay was super similar. It feels a lot like a super polished Fallout. Not gonna lie. But it didn't have an open world. It had cells, right? Which bothers me. I like one big continuous open world. I don't care how system crashing it is. I prefer it that way, right? And on top of that, it didn't have in-depth lore, really. Not very much of that. Not compared to The Elder Scrolls or Fallout. And it lacks a lot of depth, comparatively speaking. Like every iteration of Bethesdian RPGs that come out, they get more depth. They add more politics. They add more companion quest lines. They add more and more of this stuff, more factions. They've degressed in some ways. Like Fallout New Vegas, for instance, had the best in terms of faction politics that you just don't get out of Fallout 4. At least not the same amount. But it still there's way more depth in the way Bethesda does it versus Obsidian, because Obsidian's super narrative based, while Bethesda's super like they just give you a canvas for the modders to paint on, and you can make the game whatever you want. And that's what I love about it.
This still has to be an actual game, though.
It does have to be an actual game, yeah. However, like I'll live stream you my Skyrim sometime, dude. It's unrecognizable. And not in a bad way. Like I don't get funny, weird mods. I just upgrade the game constantly. I just constantly make it more immersive, make it more realistic, make it better game mechanics, overhaul stuff, add more assets to the game. You know what I mean?
I always gotta have the funny mods.
I know you do. That's not quite how I play it. I like to be as immersed as possible. I like playing my own personal Dungeons and Dragons game. You know, that's how I love it. Because that's how the Elder Scrolls was created. A group of, for those listening, a group of Bethesdian employees or Bethesda employees. They had a Dungeons and Dragons game, and somehow they produced it into a game, into the Elder Scrolls universe, which is awesome. All right, we'll move on. We'll move on from that for now, because we disagree on some stuff, but agree on a lot of other stuff.
I might have to get off very soon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In that case, we'll save other conversation topics for another episode. I'd like to make this like, for now, let's try to make this like a monthly thing. We could talk about stuff going on in video games, video game lore, and video game news and stuff.
Okay.
How much time do you think you got left?
Like 5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes. All right. Never mind. We'll probably start wrapping up now then. This episode's an hour. That's good. That works. Well, thanks for being on the podcast, Lyric. I appreciate it. Plan on having you back on soon. Definitely. We're not going to be super regimented with it, just whenever it works out for me and works out for you. Sound good?
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right, sweet. You got any closing remarks other than BioWare's situation is tragic?
Bethesda, make your games not broken.
I agree, but at the same time, as long as they can be fixed by us, I'm not too bothered.
I feel that why make the community do it?
I mean, you've got a valid point. I'm not saying you don't. You do have a valid point.
If I gave you like a carton of milk with the top half of the carton just cut off, it'd be like, here you go, give me full price.
Well, there's a trade-off there. I'll say this one thing before you go. This will be my closing remark. If in order for it to be as moddable and as large scale and as in depth as they are, they have to be broken. I will take that over a super polished, constricted game. Because that's what the Outer Worlds is. The Outer Worlds is a Bethesdian RPG that's polished, finished, doesn't have a shit ton of problems, and it's super unmoddable and has a shit ton of lack of depth.
I'm just saying, there's plenty of games that are completely finished and don't have bugs like Bethesda's that are just as moddable.
I disagree. The only things that come to mind are like The Witcher 3 and The Outer Worlds, and I mean that's about it for mass scale RPGs that I can think of that are as moddable but even remotely as in depth and large scale and stuff.
I'm not saying just RPGs.
Oh, I'm thinking about RPGs, because as soon as you leave the RPG series, it's the size of the game, or at least the way it's designed, the way the player interacts with the world is so different. As soon as you get into linear concepts, it's completely different. Totally different world, in my opinion.
And like 2 games that come to mind for me is like that are not RPGs. It would be like XCOM 2, or like Empire at War.
RTS games, they have a level of modability, I'll admit to. But XCOM, I'm not sure. I know they have mods, but I don't think it's as game changing as it is in Bethesdian games.
Probably not to that same extent, but it's.
I mean, like
it's fairly up there.
Right, like I'll link you a YouTube video after this a YouTube channel called Heavy Burns. He does a game change series where he turns Skyrim into other games using mods. And I don't think there's any other game on the market that can do this. Like he turns Skyrim into Dark Souls, or he turns it into Lord of the Rings, or he turns it into Harry Potter. He like does all this shit, and it's crazy.
I've seen him do that with like Halo Dark Souls.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. Alright, but yeah, with that I'll let you go. Thanks for being on the podcast, and have you on again next month, dog.
Alright. Good talking to you, dude. Catch you later.
Likewise, see you everybody.